I'm Steven.
And I'm Spencer. Welcome to Ragnarokast, your podcast for all things marketing and Martech.
Hello, everyone. We're the co-CEOs of Ragnarok.
All right. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Steven, welcome back.
Oh, thank you, sir. Glad to be back. Where was I gone?
So what you say on a show, you know, you dunce, you absolute rube.
Oh, drat it.
All right, welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Excited to be here. See if we'll see how it goes if you have me back.
Let's put a pin in that one.
Yeah, Laura actually told us before this started that she's in a bunker holed up with 7,000 cans of beans somewhere in the north.
Canada.
Yeah.
We got a variety of pinto, cannellini. Like, what type of beans we talking
I
here?
got all the beans.
All the beans.
Lima, black, refried.
You wish you were in my
Mr.
bunker.
You got Mr. Bean in there?
Mr. Bean.
No, yeah, no, Mr. Bean.
Okay, you always got to have a spare Mr. Bean.
That took a minute.
Laura, who are you? What's your whole deal?
My name is Laura. I am the manager of our technical consulting team here at Ragnarok. One of the things that I like to focus on with our clients is making sure that they're really getting a return on the investment of their Martech stack. So whatever we're implementing, helping them realize the revenue, make sure that it's worth what they're spending on those tools and that they're launching the most valuable use cases for their business.
We have a topic for today, which we'll get into shortly. But there's something I tried last episode, which was I asked Steven and our guest what their hot take was, but I don't think either of them knew what the phrase hot take means. So I'm going to put it in plainer English. Can you each share, and it doesn't have to be marketing related, but it'd be nice if you have one marketing or Martech related, an unpopular opinion on a hill that you would be happy to die on?
I love pineapple on pizza.
Yeah, like, you know, if you're talking to somebody and you just feel really strongly about it, and someone's like, "You really want to die on that hill?" I'll be like, "Yeah, I'll die right here. I'll die on this hill."
I'm pineapple on pizza. I'll die on that hill. I love pineapple on pizza. I think it's delicious. Goes very well with some ham on there, a little bit of chili oil.
Is that Canadian?
No, it's
Detroit style.
It's what they call war crime against humanity.
Well, I'm dying on this war crime hill here.
Yeah, all alone.
I think all my opinions are, no, they're not incendiary. Okay, well, I don't know if I'm willing to die on this hill, but I would say most of your reporting should probably not be in your email tool. So some health checks in there for your programs are great, but eventually you probably should be doing most of your reporting elsewhere.
And are you willing to die on that hill?
There's not a lot I'm willing to die for. I'm just not a passionate person, Stephen.
She'll take a wound, like a light scratch, maybe a
I'll
kick
take
to
a
the
minor
shin.
inconvenience for it.
Yeah. So, Steven, do you have one? Do you have that was a really good one, by the way. Steven, do you have
that was a
something?
really good one. Yeah, I just said it. Pineapple on pizza, baby. Like, I'm all in for that.
No.
I'm gonna
Come
die
on.
on that hill.
You literally put Martech Guru or whatever it is on your LinkedIn. Like, you gotta have something in there.
My opinions are just not unpopular because obviously I set the trend. So it's like hard to find something that not everybody's going to already agree with. No, I'm kidding. Man, what do people hate right now that I can like be on the other side of? You know, I'm going to say like, I feel like AMP for Gmail has an opportunity to come back. I think there's some great potential there. And, you know, I think it'll come back one day. People may say it's dead. But, you know, I'm willing to bet that it's going to come back someday.
Hey, you know what? Cassette tapes are making a comeback, so
there you go.
That could happen. The topic for this discussion is implementing AI into your Martech stack. Now, as we said the other day when we were planning this out, AI and even AI in marketing is a horse that's been dead. People keep beating it. It will just continue to be a little pulp. As we go into 2025. And there's lots of dissenting opinions about, you know, whether AI is the next big thing, whether it's just a fad. we're not really here to talk about that today. Today, we're here to talk about, okay, so for those tools that are useful for marketers in there, whether it's standalone AI marketing tools or ones that are already built into their automation platforms, there's a lot that you have to do to actually make that useful. And so we've brought on Laura to chat with us about her experience, along with Steven, who he's actually an Android, so he can speak from firsthand experience.
Beep boop.
But all right, here's our prompt. What are the
I'm
capabilities?
more of an
or
iOS guy though,
Huh?
you know, like I don't want to be like I'm pretty pro Apple, just saying, you know.
You can't distract him even a little bit.
Here's our prompt. What are the capabilities or requirements needed before your team/company can move forward with AI adoption in their marketing program? What will make a team ready? What do they need to do first before implementing an AI tool is even really feasible or useful?
I feel like special guest Laura should definitely be the opener for this one.
Yeah, I don't know if these are very hot takes, but I think first, because I think a lot of what happens is there's maybe pressure from senior leadership to start adopting AI practices. So I think the first thing is trying to figure out what exactly you want to do with the AI capabilities. Are you looking to optimize your content itself, the send time of your messages, the channel? Are you trying to generate content with it? So where is there room for optimization in your program? Because when we talk about AI, it means different things to different people. So I think that's the first thing. And I don't know, Stephen, if you feel like you get a lot of that when you get clients on a call, do you feel like you first have to figure out what it is that they're looking for before you can really go any further?
Yeah, I just pull up a chat GPT prompt and I'm like, okay, what is AI? And then just have it explain itself. No, I mean, I think to your point, Laura, there is a vast learning gap between, people who have been using AI for the last decade of their career and people who are like, this seems like an interesting term that people are talking about. Let me Google something and then I will be an armchair expert on it. So I think you have to gauge people's understanding of what it is first, and then you have to figure out where can I apply it to be the most effective. And the usual application is not like, usually the easiest application is like, well, why don't you like type a couple of things in the chat GPT and then kind of learn a little bit about, what AI gives back to you, and then get amazed and then keep going and keep going, then find out like where it starts to hallucinate, right? Like, that's like the first thing is like to understand like how far you can go before it's like, what is this thing even talking about anymore? Like how to work 8 days a week. That's a great question to ask a chat GPT. And then I think the next thing is to look at like, do I actually have like a sizable audience or sizable amount of data to work with? Because if you're like under like 500,000 users, for example, you probably don't have enough data for AI to be more effective than somebody coming up with ideas and like building programs for you, right? There's like a scale that has to happen because it needs enough stuff to look at to like build out segments of people that you could use. And so I think like I guess the first thing is like to one, validate your literacy, and then two, like to, make sure you're eligible for this AI in marketing, right? There's certainly other applications you can use AI for, but like the main things that people are talking about, you may not quite qualify for out of the gate.
Yeah, that's fair. So if you have a client in front of you that you don't think has the scale, what do you typically recommend that they do to start?
Yeah, I'd say just get the data foundation that you will eventually need when you do hit the scale, right? So do we have are you capturing behavioral data, and are you storing that accurately and with good governance, and is it available? Is it standardized? It's kind of like the first thing to look at. And then on the other side, are they sending emails? Or are they sending SMS? Like, is that engagement data available within the same data set as well? And then just kind of keep backing out from all the other places that they could potentially be collecting data from. Maybe it's transactions, maybe it's a subscription data, or things they're doing in a third party that they have available through some type of data share agreement, whatever type of other interactions they have. Like, get all of that somewhere to start with. And you might not have an exact use for it now, but when you have the scale, that stuff's going to become very useful to have the historical context for the AI to look through and to sort of understand like, how has this pattern changed over time with people who maybe were at a scale of like 250,000 users, and now when you 2 years later you're at 500,000. There's a lot of data that it can assess over that 2-year period and come up with some pretty good estimates out the gate, instead of like, well, now we're ready for AI, so let's now start collecting this data in a way that AI can use it. You can really start that journey much earlier.
And so let's say you have over 500,000 users, you have some historical data, you have someone who's literate, you're at least ready to start the project. What do you do then to actually start an implementation of an AI tool?
Well, we kind of glossed over one bit, which was like that data preparation, data cleaning, but that's actually like a huge lift for most companies. Getting your data in a good spot, getting clean data, properly formatted data, deciding if you have multiple sources of truth for maybe, conversions or whatever that data piece is, which is the right one. That stuff can sometimes be the biggest lift. So I think having the resources to go through that process of cleaning the data where it needs to be cleaned, interrogating your data, and also collecting it if you're not already collecting all the pieces of data that you need, that's a pretty big lift.
Oh yeah.
So what if you're going from this stage of you're a smaller company that's preparing, but maybe you don't have that resource quite in place? Like, is it how much more time consuming is it just to collect as much as you can and then sift through it later versus doing it right the first time?
Well, you might invalidate a lot of the historical data if it's not collected correctly, and that's kind of the trouble with it. Or you have to do a lot of like updating historical data, which can be quite painful. So you could do it, and honestly, it's better to have it than to not have it. So if between those two options, Spencer, like I would take the one that's like, well, let me at least get something in place, and if it's not clean standardized, at least I have something. So maybe once I'm 2 years later and I'm ready to instrument more of an AI system, I could at least maybe take all those historical events and maybe all of them are useful, but I can't use any of the properties that are in them, or I can't use any of the metadata that's attached to it. But at least I have like a behavioral event or something that happened. So you do have some granularity. You just might not be able to say like, if I'm looking at trying to, for example, and to go to one more specific use cases you were indicating, Spencer, say I'm standing up an onboarding series, and I want my onboarding series I want the AI to build the onboarding series or to change the content that somebody receives based on, kind of two layers of propensity, one being the source that they came in from. So were they like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever? Like, was it a paid social? Was it a direct mail source? Like, where do they come in from? And maybe my historical data is not valid there. So I only have, forward looking, being able to optimize against that. And then the second thing I want to optimize on is the type of behavior that I need them to do in order to convert. So like, how many visits do I need to drive to the website before they convert, or what pages they need to visit? What are those different black boxy activities that the AI is looking at that will indicate what the propensity is? And so I think when you even though one of the areas of the model isn't as fleshed out, I have at least the behavioral events. So at least I know I can build a pretty good starting point of or have the AI optimize a pretty decent onboarding journey for people. But then as I look to improve that over time, over 90 days or 150 days or so, when I have more historical or have more events that would have been collected the right way, the model will continue to tweak itself. And then ideally, I'll start to see some variations between folks who come in from paid social versus direct mail or paid search. Do they have different experiences? Do they have different levels of engagement they need before they do whatever converting activity I've laid out for them?
Well, I just want to add on to that. I think with a little bit of planning, even if you don't have a ton of resources to point towards this project at launch, with a little bit of planning, you can probably identify a handful of things that you should be tracking to be able to get it off the ground when the time comes. It doesn't have to be a full-blown tracking plan, comprehensive. Just identifying those few things, I think, goes a long way. And I found sometimes it can be hard to get buy-in to plan the tracking, because historically it's kind of the least fun part. of launching your program. Like people like building the things that are customer facing. But I think now with some of the new capabilities around AI, planning for that, I think it might be a little bit easier to sell the upfront planning on the tracking.
Whether you're a newer company, gearing up to someday do this, or you're about to dive in, what's the best data to start the process? Either doing it ahead of time, or you're actually ready to start implementing. You want to gather the data. What do you think you should start with? Like the top 5 or 6 things?
Well, your conversion event's probably the most important one. So buying the thing, buying the item, the subscription, signing up to the platform, whatever it is you're trying to get users to do. That's the number one thing. You want to make sure you have the most comprehensive data about that. You have full coverage of the tracking there. And then, anything I think to do with your onboarding funnel is pretty important. It's hard to talk about these things in a vacuum. Everybody's experience looks a little bit different. But
it's okay if you have like a case study in your mind that you can use as an example. People will extrapolate from that what's the most important thing for them based on, case study X that you're holding in your mind.
Yeah, I think another thing that goes a long way is just capturing basic information about your users. If you're B2B, firmographic data is great. All that stuff helps with building lookalike type models. So gathering that information consistently wherever you can will go a long way once you actually want to get more sophisticated programs off the ground.
Yeah, I think anything that's any channel engagement that you would be having. So any emails that you're sending, who's opening, viewing, clicking those. Same thing with SMS, who's receiving them, who's engaging with them, push. Anything along those lines is helpful, especially since that's probably primarily where you'll apply the AI, except for maybe some on-site personalization or anything you might do inside of the product experience. But yeah, I think that there's also usually a huge volume of that data that's available. So that's usually pretty helpful too.
And just going back to the concept of data cleaning as well, ensuring once you get your program, once you're starting these programs up front, to be really consistent with tracking all your channel engagement, make sure you're setting your UTMs in a consistent way. That saves you from having to go back and do some cleanup work later. And so being really rigorous with the data that you are capturing will be really helpful. Saves a lot of time. Whether
you're AI literate or learning, are there any current limitations that you can think of for things that would actually not be useful? Because not necessarily because of your business model, but because of a limitation in AI. Is there something where people should hedge their expectations a little bit?
Some of the free AI that's out there, especially the Gen AI stuff, is pretty risky to use in a business use case. So think anything that's doing image creation or is doing something with where it could potentially be taking copyrighted material. We always, of course, like to shout out our partners here, like Movable Ink and the DaVinci suite that they have. I think is a good example of what it could be like when it's done very well. But there's certainly a lot of Gen AI out there that's not quite up to par for a business use case. It might be good for a high school or a college presentation, but definitely not at the part where you have to be concerned about, copyright infringement and whatnot. So that's generally if you're thinking about doing an investment, think more on investing in areas where you're mitigating risk on using the AI. I think is one of the criteria that a lot of people miss. And I think that's a big one too.
And beyond data collection and figuring out what data to collect, another one that came up when we were preparing for this is analytics capabilities. Laura, I believe that was one of your points.
She's so passionate about analytics capabilities.
Yeah. I'm struggling to remember the exact context. So maybe you remember it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is slightly different from maybe the capabilities of being able to launch an AI program. So do all the things that we just said, and you can get something off the ground. The question that comes next is you might have invested quite heavily in this, either the cost of the tools or the man hours to get there or both. You're going to want to have good analytics capabilities in place to make sure that you can prove that there is a return on that investment. Because as much as everyone wants to see these programs take off, and it is really exciting, you have to show that they're making money if you're spending a lot of money on them. And it can be difficult to get the right analytics in place to be able to really show an ROI specific to the programs that you're running and the features that you purchase to be able to run them.
So you're saying that you have to get a return on Martech and people spend?
Oh, a little romps action there.
It was kind of touched on when you talked about the team that's doing this should be AI literate, but what's the actual ongoing, or do we know yet? What's the actual ongoing resource needed to make this work, and what skills do they need to have or skill up on? Because it's not just this exists in a vacuum. Someone has to train the AI, run, observe it, do the analysis, continue to train it over time. What is this resource and how time consuming? What amount of time should they expect to put into this on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, I think at the starting point, you're probably using a lot of out of the box features and things that are available in maybe your customer data platform or your marketing automation tool or something that you're just kind of pulling off of Google's library, in which case you don't need a whole lot of investment there. A product team could do 99% of that deployment, and you'll get some gain off of it, right? It's going to be pretty effective just from the get-go, especially if you have the volume, and there's certainly ways that it's going to help alleviate kind of some manual intervention there. I think as you get, and much more on the propensity modeling side of things and some tools that are being built today, like what High Touch is building with its AI capability, you're going to need somebody who's a little bit more like a data scientist or has a little bit more of that literacy and capability and understanding how to train an AI model. It's actually harder than it seems because for one, you have very limited observability, right? All this stuff is really being done in a black box, and the only thing that you can interpret from it is to go in and look at the results it's pointing to and make observations around it. That there are some more advanced tools out there that will do some anomaly observation and things that will kind of help refine it even further. But at the end of the day, you're give me a list of our top 5,000 customers, for example. Maybe the model's based on propensity to purchase on your entire customer base, and it gives you 5,000 people. And if you go and audit that 5,000 people and say, what is the model? If it wasn't already providing what its weighting was, you'd have to go in and validate. How is it weighting certain things to say these people are, most likely to purchase compared to the other, maybe next 5,000 that are underneath that? And, you can imagine by hand, that would take you a very long time to go and validate. And so what you're looking for is to sort of, as you interrogate the output of that model, you're looking what is it patterning out? Is it looking for recent behavior? In which case, how good is this model if it's just giving me a bunch of people who have had recent behavior? They're going to get targeted with marketing anyway. So there's probably not going to be a lot of impact there. And so in order for you to further refine that beyond what the out of the box does, you have to kind of add in your own variables and your own weights that you can't do with the out of the box stuff. So you can say, let's say, for example, it's a B2B operation, and you are you're a supplier of printers. There's probably a season in which people buy a lot of printers, and it might be right after people print a lot of paper, right? The AI model probably isn't going to understand that seasonality because it's just looking at and interpreting data that happens continuously. And so you'll have to...
Personally, I do all my printing in February. I'll be like, Epson, it's that time again, and they know it's me.
Or it's April, right? It's when you're doing your taxes or when you're handing literal paper to people, right? But a good point, Spencer, right? If maybe it's February for people, right? But the AI isn't going to understand that seasonality off the bat. And so we have to help train it to understand seasonality in our business, or help train it to understand or to give it some more measure of these are accounting firms that we're targeting here, in this sector of business vertical. Okay, well, we know accounting firms print a lot of paper in April and they print a lot of paper in September, or whatever dates, right? And so we need to help the model understand the nuance of this particular vertical. Now, that's not easy to do, right? And what you have to sort of do is set constraints within the model. You have to tell it things. And like telling an AI model something is not like telling, Chat GPT something, right? Or at least in a propensity model. Like you tell Chat GPT like, oh, can you fix that? Or like this should go there. Like it still continues to kind of make mistakes on things, and it doesn't fully remember the way that you configured it. Like I said, it gets to a point of hallucinating at some point. I did this where I had it like break up a list of groceries, for example. I like organized these by what aisle I would have to go and buy them. It was a list of groceries I sent to my mother-in-law, and I wanted her to like easily navigate what I needed her to buy. And I realized it put some things in like really weird places. And I like, no, correct that. Like put it over here. And it, like just put it in a weirder place after that. Like a propensity model kind of does the same thing where like you have to like, you apply the weighting, you apply the rule set, and then you have to make sure it actually honors the rule set. And then if it doesn't honor it, then you have to go through and like modify or tweak the way that you apply that rule. So that way it honors it. And so a lot of it is like this, like, if what I'm describing is confusing to you, then you understand the skill set that has to be in place in order to like make this thing work if you're building it custom, right? Like it's not easy.
Well, so I guess the follow-up question to that is then how easy is it to get that human resource? Is it something that companies should try and hire for a full-time role? Is it something they can outsource to a third party, or does that person really need to know their business really well? Does it make sense as a full-time role if they do want it internal? So how do we think about that role? Is it trainable?
I've seen companies do quite a few different mixes of that. I'd say there's always a need to have some type of internal domain level knowledge person there, whether or not you outsource the majority of the build or the modification of it. I think having somebody internally in your company who reports to your executives is pretty critical from like I'd say like a continuity perspective. But yeah, there are certainly plenty of companies out there that have, PhD data scientists on staff that help kind of build this stuff out, and probably is a good starting point, especially if you're not a company with like 40 or 50 data scientists on staff who can do this all day long. Now, a lot of data scientists at companies don't build marketing propensity models, right? They build like features for Canva, and like image and color correction AI, and they do other types of more consumer facing AI. The marketing stuff, there's certainly, I've seen a lot less specialization around that. There are people, of course, but the modeling is a little bit different and the approach is different because the output's a number.
Well, as a follow-up, maybe to Laura, do you think you have to hire for it, or is any of this trainable, or does it take too long?
There's probably a blend that makes sense of hiring someone and partnering with a third party simultaneously as you get your program off the ground. You obviously want someone who understands all the nuances that Stephen was talking about, how you are going to play with fiddle with the dials on that model. But at the end of the day, it's probably something that long-term needs to live internally just to understand your business.
With that note, is there anything else that we should be thinking of here? I'm a marketer. I'm ready to start this process. I've got my data in order. I've got my analytics capabilities. I've got my resource. I've got my PhD guy. He's just sitting in a corner. He's just raring to go. He's ready to analyze and train some AI. Is there anything else that me, the marketer, needs either before or during this process?
I'd say if you already have an out-of-the-box AI, the first thing you're going to want to do is try to beat that if you're building your own system. That's your first goal. So whether that's in a better propensity model that lets you target better, whether it's product recommendations that you're delivering better recommendations, or any type of output, like beat the out-of-the-box model first. And then once you beat that, you have a lot of room to kind of improve from there. And so generally that beating the out-of-the-box model might be a 4 to 6 month long process, could be a year long. And then I think as you continue to find out what were you doing that let you beat that model, you then take whatever that winning was, that effort, and you compound that even more. So whether that's relationships that you're building between things, whether it's rule setting and refinement, like that's the thing that you got to keep doing. And then probably after about optimizing it for maybe another 6 months to a year, move on to the next model, I would say.
Depending on the field that you're in, thinking about compliance, what data are you using to train the model? That might be something that you want to consult with your legal team or legal resources on.
So
yeah,
like training it to be HIPAA compliant?
There we go. Like that. You can't use that PHI data, in your model there.
So I think we've covered what if you're not ready. Is there anything else that they should be doing other than figuring out what data they should collect, how to collect it, whatever they can with the limited resources and time and tooling that they have? Is there anything else that they can do, that marketer can do in that 2-year span or however long it is while they're preparing to roll out a program like this?
I think a robust testing and optimization program is probably a good one. It's probably a good walk phase before you hit the run phase, because you should learn a lot as you're continually testing and optimizing. And if you're doing that, you're probably already collecting the data that you need for the insights and collecting the data that you need to run the test to target the users. So I think those are good. I don't want to call them training wheels because that makes it sound trivial. I think having a good testing and optimization program is hard to do in and of itself, but that's a good phase to start with.
I will piggyback on that. And I would say, as part of your training program, you should think about what do you want to learn and to use that as the guiding. And so, do I want to learn, like, what is the best creative I can use to engage my audience? Do I want to learn what is the best subject lines I can use to increase open rate? Do I want to learn, what is the right sequence of messages or cadence of messages that gets somebody to convert? Like, things that the AI would optimize against is like that. It like tries to learn. And I think having our testing approach be like that, as opposed to like, I'm going to send out a blast campaign today. Well, let me just run a subject line A/B auto winner split just so I can get the best outcome for this. Like, that's fine to de-risk your send, but it's not actually, if you're not trying to learn anything, you're just trying to, like, you couldn't make a decision between two things, so you decide to test. Like, that's not the right approach. I do think you need to approach it from like, how would an AI learn it? And then you are the AI. You are the AI, and this at the start there.
That's interesting because I'm sure that's not how a lot of companies are approaching their testing programs today. I think that's kind of a new perspective for that type of work.
Speaking from an Android with experience here, no, kidding.
A humanoid android. With not a whole lot of time left to go here, I'd like to play a little game. Don't worry, Laura, you don't have to share your favorite ice cream or whatever it is that you're worried about.
Yeah, like games, Greg?
Oh, no. Okay, we'll see where this goes.
It'll be easy. All right. It's called Let's Break the AI. So you two are literate. I'm fairly illiterate, but I do like messing around with ChatGPT. Let's start with a really good use of this tool. And then
is this paid ChatGPT? This is paid ChatGPT,
this
right?
Is paid,
GPT
yes.
4 or 5 or okay. So the first question we should ask is, what is AI?
What is AI? AI refers to that simulation of human intelligence and machines that are programmed to think, learn, and make decisions. Wow, did you get all that?
Look at all that. Look at all these questions and things and categories that it's giving us.
Okay, please stop. Stop. It won't listen. Stop. Oh, here we go. There's a stop button. There we go. Okay. Give me another one. Laura, you go.
So I like that you said please.
Please.
I like that you were very polite to it. Okay. Okay, so let's maybe we should continue on this thread. Let's scroll up and see what we've got here in this answer. Okay. Maybe you could ask your AI about how do I build a machine learning algorithm? Do you think it will understand if you get the grammar rule?
I think
you would never get the grammar rule.
Right. That's a me thing. Clearly outline the problem you're solving. Define the problem. Gather and prepare data. Wow. Choose an algorithm. Train the model.
We talk about algorithms.
Evaluate
That's
the model.
not for today. Okay.
Test the model. Deploy the model. Monitor and update. There you go. How do you feel about that answer?
I feel like it gets this question a lot.
All right. Now, this is how I use ChatGPT. What is the square root of toast? Oh, look at that. But it's a fun and quirky question. No, I mean literally. Don't belittle me spot.
You're
right to ask for
right.
respect. Thank you for holding me accountable. Let's take your question at face value. However, toast is a concept related to food, not a numerical value.
Wow. I'm surprised that it came up with something that is feasibly math. What's one of the questions that we know always breaks it? Like there's a classic, I don't know what it is. How many R's are in strawberry or something? I think that was one recently that got a lot of attention, which is something that Chat GPT struggles with. Let's see if it gets it right. Oh, okay. Making a fool out of me then. Have you discovered a way to bend time?
Maybe we can start asking it things of like philosophical questions, right? So let's say something like, I was able to build an AI. Maybe just write this ChatGPT. I was able to build an AI that thinks exactly the same way I do. Can you ask it some questions for me?
Yeah, you've got to start putting a limit on the questions. You got to start telling Chat GPT when
If
3 sentences.
And then say, you can just ask me these questions because the AI is the same as me.
Since your AI thinks exactly like you, answer these questions yourself will give us valuable insight.
And then write back, I feel like your questions are unsuitable for my level of intelligence. Ask me more difficult questions, please. You're stuck in a room with no doors and windows. How do you escape? Hint, pretend you're magic.
What if one man and his clone are trapped in a room?
Wait. Sorry. Do you see this response? Someone offers you a cookie, but it's oatmeal raisin. Do you take it or politely cry?
That's a sense of humor. That's impressive. I like oatmeal raisin.
I like
me
oatmeal
too.
raisin too. I guess neither of us
There's
politely cry. I love that question.
Here's how it
That's
might play out. If the man and his clone are truly identical in every way, they would both launch for the weapon at the same time. The original might hesitate considering the ethical dilemma of fighting their self, while the clone, depending on its programming or mindset.
Not a valid solution. After all, what's the point of survival if it comes down to the cost of fighting oneself? Ooh, good point.
The winner isn't the faster, stronger, or smarter one. It's the one who breaks the loop of competition. Damn.
Why fight when you can team up? Hey, we're literally the same. Why don't we just and figure out how to escape and call it? Why don't you write back? But only one person can leave. Cooperation is truly off the table, and it boils down to who acts faster, more decisively. Here's my take: if the original clone are truly identical reflexes and skills,
I'd put my chips on the clone. The clone is born from the need to survive and prove its worth.
Excellent. But if the original outsmarts the clone with some quick mind games like pretending to surrender, it could flip the outcome entirely. Who said brute force was the only path to victory?
Why are we assuming the original is capable of outsmarting, but the clone isn't?
I don't think ChatGPT always understands
I don't
the thought
understand
process here.
Well, I think our quote for the day is, someone offers you a cookie, but it's oatmeal raisin. Do you take it politely or cry? Or do you take it or politely cry? I think that's it. I'm going to use that. Salem, there's our partner quote of the month. So you can put it on for February. We're out of time. Thank you, everybody. That was really fun. I hope you all learned something. I know I did, and I had some fun while doing it. So till next time, follow us on your podcast app of choice, whether it be Spotify or whatever
Apple
the other
Podcast,
ones are.
wherever
Apple
you get your
Podcasts.
podcast.
Yeah, Apple Podcast. There you go. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming. guest Laura.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Hi, Mom.
Laura. Hi, Laura's mom.
Hi, Laura's mom.